Dave Smith, Vice President of Home Ownership and Financial Development at HomeFree-USA. Growing up, the greatest lesson I learned was from my father. It's funny, as I become older and as my kids become older, I have more respect for my dad, who unfortunately passed away 20 years ago. But his famous saying was, nothing takes the place of nice manners. And if you think about it, in life, in the business world, in our personal lives, in our family, our friends, and our colleagues, everyone does want to be treated with respect and dignity. And my father was probably one of the nicest men I knew. He never had an unkind word to say about anybody, and his manners were impeccable. And I know there's some days that in the workforce, my manners may not always be the best. But honestly, everyone just wants to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity, and kindness. And so really that is the motto that I try to live up to every day with everyone I come in contact with.
Hello, we're Mike and Wendy Bozeman. We came to HomeFree-USA for some help in answering some questions we had about our home loan. We had great service. I credit
Gary Plummer was an excellent advocate for us in helping us through this process. We really appreciate the assistance that we got from HomeFree. Thank you so much. We're in a better position because of HomeFree's assistance.
We have no idea what we would have done without HomeFree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. What do you say to leaders like us who, like many of our clients, we get discouraged, just really concerned about how life is going to be? Things do get tough. Well, listen up. We have a great message for you, a great sense of wisdom and words of encouragement. In fact, the title for our next speaker, who you're going to love, Reverend Dr. Gina Stewart. Her speech to you, her words of wisdom to you, will embody encouragement for people like you who encourage others. You are the backbone of your community. We appreciate you so much. There are many, many who need you, and we thank all of you for your dedication to making lives better for others. Well, now it is time for you to just kind of sit back and relax. Allow Dr. Gina Stewart to give you some words, impress upon you, give you the inspiration that you need so that we can make 2021 a great year. Thank you so much. Let's welcome Reverend Dr. Gina Stewart.
To President and CEO Marcia Griffin, to the leadership and all those who support closing the home ownership and wealth gap among people of color. We celebrate your work and witness, which includes providing information, inspiration, and motivation for increasing the home ownership success and financial skills and capabilities that make financial self-sufficiency more than a dream, but a reality. We rejoice in your vision and your work and your witness. And I am grateful for this invitation to share in this virtual conference. I want to express my appreciation to President Griffin as well as Gwen Garnett, who personally extended the invitation to be a part of this gathering. President Griffin was very clear that the purpose of this gathering is to encourage the encouragers. And with that in mind, I'd like to invite you to think with me on this title, Oxygen for the Soul. Someone has said that to err, A-I-R, is human. In making this statement, the larger implication is that the body needs oxygen. Oxygen is all around us. It's in the air that we breathe, and that is a good thing because we could not live without oxygen. Oxygen is so important that it could lead to death, or it will lead to death if we're deprived of it for only a short time. The demand for ventilators in the wake of the COVID-19 virus is a persistent and pervasive example of what can happen when a person is deprived of oxygen. Oxygen fuels our cells and helps provide the basic building blocks that our bodies may need to survive. Our cells combine oxygen with nitrogen and hydrogen to produce various proteins that build new cells. And when oxygen is combined with carbon and hydrogen, we get carbohydrates that provide energy to our bodies that makes it necessary, or that are so necessary to keep us alive. Oxygen is also necessary for constructing replacement cells for our bodies. Every day, about 700 billion cells in our bodies wear out and must be replaced. Without oxygen, our bodies cannot build these new cells. Oxygen is a particularly important part of our immune system because it helps to kill bacteria and it fuels the cells that make up our body's defenses against viruses and other invaders. The human eye is also in particular need of oxygen to function well, but the eye receives oxygen in a manner that is unique from the rest of the body. Few blood vessels travel to the eye, so our eyes absorb much of the oxygen they need directly from the cornea. The cornea is built in such a way as to diffuse oxygen directly into the body from the air. If the air has traveled through air purifiers first, it can enter the eye without causing irritation. It is through the human body's respiratory system that the cells of the human body receive the oxygen that they need to properly function. The entry gates of the respiratory system are the nose and the mouth. This is where air comes into the body, and this air is directed toward and down the trachea and into the lungs. The diaphragm is a muscle located across the bottom of the chest that makes the body draw in air through the nose and mouth and then exhale air through the same openings or cavities. I'm sure that by now you're wondering, what does all this have to do with this meeting or this message? I'm sure that you're wondering why I'm spending so much time, what may even seem like an inordinate amount of time, talking to you about oxygen. Well, I'm glad you asked. Or perhaps you are silently sending a message through the chat feature on this Zoom call saying, what in the world is she talking about? What does oxygen have to do with this discussion? Well, I shared these reflections about oxygen because I want to suggest that oxygen is a metaphor or a descriptor for our lives. I want to argue today that encouragement is oxygen for the soul. Encouragement is important business and it merits our careful attention. Now, I admit that my bias is fueled by my social location as a pastor and a preacher. And I'm aware of the importance of encouragement because encouragement brings with it many benefits, as it is the act of giving someone support, confidence, and hope. Encouragement can do wonders for our outlook on life. It helps us push through bad times, and we should never underestimate the power of positive words. As a pastor and preacher for 25 years, I know the power of a spoken and encouraging word. So even though this is not a sermonic moment, there are ancient and sacred texts that affirm this proposition. If this were a preaching moment, I would invite you to consider several passages of scripture in the book of Hebrews that tell us how we ought to stimulate and encourage others to good deeds and the efficacy of encouragement. It's not a sermon, but I need to say that encouragement really matters and that it is essential for our lives. It's been said that when Sigmund Freud discovered that the symptoms of emotional distress could be relieved by simply talking in certain ways to his patients, he was puzzled and intrigued. Years of medical training had conditioned him to think of people as mere biological and chemical entities. But Freud had concluded that problems like anxiety and depression and phobias must reflect some physical disorder treatable only through medical intervention. And while there may be some validity to Freud's claim, if I could have a conversation with Freud, I would tell him that medicine can be helpful and good, but juxtaposed beside medicine is the medicinal impact of words. Words are important. They have very real power. The tongue is a small part of the body, but it wields enormous power. And I'm sure that most, if not all of us, have a Rolodex file of the words that were said to us that were life-giving or life-depleting. Have you ever been on the receiving end of life-giving words? Life-giving words are a gift. Life-giving words are well-timed words. Life-giving words help to balance out the negativity of criticism. Consider some of the life-giving words that have set your heart in motion or encouraged you. Words like, I appreciate you. You are amazing. You were phenomenal. You are a blessing. I respect you. I'm so glad our paths cross. I love you. I support you. I'm here for you. You are not alone. These are life-giving words that are like oxygen to the soul. And we also have memories of those words that have encouraged us and given us the extra fuel that we need to keep going. But we also have memories of life-depleting words, words that have come from someone who said something cruel or unkind or unreasonably critical, those words that lodged in our brain like a bullet, bringing sorrow to us each time we recall them. And I'm not referring to something that happened last week or last year. It could have been years ago. It could have been the time when you were told that you didn't fit the profile for a certain position, or the time that you received what you believe was an unfair personnel evaluation that left you demoralized. Or it could have been slander by someone in your profession that you regarded as a friend, or a statement made that made you feel invisible and marginalized. Or it could have been a harsh word from someone that you have gone to extraordinary length to help, and they lash out at you for no apparent reason. Words have power. They can be life-depleting or life-giving. Life-giving words lift us. Life-giving words encourage us. They are the oxygen that keeps us pressing on in spite of obstacles and failures. And my suspicion is that there are a few people, possibly a lot of people, who could use a life-giving word right about now. 2020 has been a difficult year for most of us. It's been a year of loss for many people. Some have lost jobs, time, and health. Some have had personal setbacks, professional setbacks, spiritual setbacks, financial setbacks. Some have lost opportunities and possessions and relationships and friendships. Some of us have witnessed a reduction in our income and had to make major adjustments because of this unexpected global pandemic. Some have had to streamline staff and make difficult decisions for the sake of salvaging their business. And most importantly, because of a deadly global pandemic, we've had to live day in and day out with uncertainty, living with the frustration of ambiguity and unresolved issues that directly impact our lives, hoping that each day will get better, and it seems to get worse. We've listened to leaders insult each other in real time on 24-hour media cycles. Every day we wake up to dismal statistics of more than 10 million cases of COVID-related illnesses and more than 240,000 deaths. And so many of us, we're so weary of this season that we're barely holding on by the skin of our chinny chin chin. And we could use a life-giving word right now to help us reimagine what is possible, to help us reframe some of the disappointment and the tragedy and the trauma that has shaped and informed our lives. If I was preaching, I would tell you what ancient and sacred texts say about the importance of encouraging one another, because our words have power. As a matter of fact, when I spoke with President and CEO Marcia Griffin, she made it clear that that's the purpose of this conference, to encourage the encourager. She said, encouragement for leaders who encourage others. What a noble gesture. What a noble aspiration. Because the truth of the matter is that sometimes the encourager needs encouraging. Sometimes the encourager needs a life-giving word. Sometimes the encourager needs to be reminded that their living and their labor is not in vain. Sometimes The encourager needs to be reminded that the worst thing that happened to them is not the last thing that happened. Sometimes the encourager needs to be reminded that there are sequels to the stories of defeat and despair in our lives. So since I am here virtually, and since I am a preacher, let me encourage you. Let me speak life to you. Let me tell you that trouble don't last always. And let me tell you that you are making a difference, that your life has value, that you are a blessing, that someone will one day thank God for you when they go to sleep at night, and when they stand before God, they may call your name. So be encouraged. Behind every cloud, there's a silver lining. Be encouraged and don't grow weary in well-doing or doing right. Walk together, children, and don't get weary. Keep pressing on. Keep moving forward. Your work, your labor, your investment, your sacrifice is not in vain. May you breathe better tonight, because you know that your labor is not in vain. Ashe and amen.